If you will, state your name and address for the record.
Tracy McReynolds, 604 Old Highway 52 East, Bethpage, Tennessee.
Yes, ma'am. What do you have to say?
All I wanted to say was this is a special request for my son who is autistic. He is 23 years old and he wants his independence. When we moved to this area and knowing that we had a little bit more land, we intended on doing a small extension for him, and that's exactly what this is. It's just a garage for our cars and then his small dwelling behind it. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that it's going to look like one entire house. There's not going to be, it's not going to look any different. It's just going to go in the very back of the house. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak to this request? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. What's the will of the board?
I'd like to make motion number one.
We have a motion, for example, motion number one. Is there a second? Motion and a second. For example, motion number one, subsection A and B. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda, Sumner County staff is requesting a BZA determination related to a temporary secondary dwelling that was to be removed within 30 days of the issuance of certificate of occupancy of the new primary dwelling. Property is at 131 1315C, Blues Branch Road, map 143, parcel 40. Josh.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, this is a request for a special question or request for interpretation from the Board of Zoning Appeals. As the board knows from some of our previous training, there are several areas that the Board of Zoning Appeals is allowed to weigh in on variances, special exceptions, and state law talks about other special questions that may arise or something to that effect. And this is one of those items that has kind of come up that staff is in a little bit of a quandary on the best way to proceed. It's a very unique situation. There's a lot of ins and outs on this particular one, and the BZA, frankly, it exists for these kinds of situations. When people don't really know which way to turn, the BZA is there to hear it and to offer a finding or advice to staff on which way to proceed. And so what this is an 8.3 acre lot that's located on Willis Branch Road. The property owners are Molly Pierce and Louie and Lauren Pierce. I believe Louie and Lauren are here in attendance this evening. It is owned by three different individuals. That's a key point that I'm going to return to here in a little bit. The history on this one, zoning compliance form was submitted to the Planning and Engineering Office requesting approval for the construction of a new house. And on that zoning compliance form, I'll show that in a little bit, it was noted on there that there's an existing single-family structure. It's a double-wide manufactured home on the lot was to be removed, as is our policy in general. There's one, except for the accessory dwelling unit process, which we just talked about. We allow typically one primary dwelling per lot if you're less than 15 acres, and this is 8.3 acres. And so it was noted on that form that they submitted that double wide was to be removed, as is our policy upon issuance of a CO for this second home that's being put on the line, and it was approved with that contingency. Subsequently, I think there was discussion. Of course, the property owners are here this evening can speak to that, but there was discussion about the feasibility of being able to remove that double wide that's on the property. They revised and sent a new zoning compliance application, essentially requesting that existing manufactured dwelling be allowed to remain as an accessory dwelling unit. And what we were told is the Pierce's, Lori and Lauren Pierce noted that the actual owner of the manufactured dwelling, apparently this second dwelling is under separate ownership. Molly Pierce owns it. That person doesn't reside on the property anymore. They can't get in contact with him. The double wide isn't theirs to remove. Essentially, they don't own it. And so staff is at a quandary because there's things in our code that are required for accessory dwelling units. We were exploring the ADU process with them to permit the single family house and find a way to permit this double wide as an ADU. But we have a deed restriction, as the board may know, that has to be recorded with that's in the zoning code. All property owners have to sign it. All property owners will not be able to sign this particular one. And so it's unrecordable. That's number one. Number two, when we went back and looked at there were some revisions on the floor plan, when we went back and looked at the floor plan for the actual new house, it has an ADU in it already. And so there's an ADU in there, and so you can't put two new ADUs in a lot. So that's the other quandary that we're in. So this is a unique situation for sure. And so we referred this item to the BZA as a special question, as is allowed by Chapter 1404 of our zoning resolution for direction. Adjoining property owners were notified by certified mail when it was advertised in the Gallatin News and Hendersonville Standard on December 26th. This is an aerial view of the subject property. So this is the double wide that's in place at this time. The road continues up through here. Staff has been back here to look at it here in the last week or two. The new house has kind of been built up here. I'll show you where in a minute. It's important to remember this is a separate lot right here. This what's going on over here is not connected to this. And so to kind of pull back a little bit, existing double wides here, new home construction is going on somewhere in this. This is approximately the general vicinity up here somewhere. There's just a little bit closer view than that. This is that public notice that we put in the paper. And the county took care of the advertisement for this, just for the record. This is something that we have referred, and so we took care of the advertisement, the fees, or the cost of the newspaper and all that. This is just a photo of that existing double wide home that is there. Again, per the applicants, it's owned by Molly Pierce, who is not available to be contacted about its removal. This is the new home that's under construction. It has not received a certificate of occupancy. It's not complete at this time. And so the codes office likewise is kind of on hold on this one as well as far as being able to issue a CO at some point. This is owned by Louis and Lauren Pierce, or they know themselves as the owners of this particular structure. So this is that original zoning compliance form that we got back in October of year before last now, October 2023. And again, what it says: build a single family home on a lot with the existing house. The existing house will be removed. And when the new house is complete. That's what that says. So that was done by their contractor, I believe, Steve signed that. Standard Builders Group, John Birdwell is the person who filled this form out for them. And that's pretty common. We have a lot of contractors that take care of the permits for their clients. This is the revision that they turned in their existing dwelling to remain as a possibility. And then that's where we noted there's an ADU in the house that's being built as well, and which complicated the matter pretty significantly. And they've been very cooperative with us on this. I would like to commend them. It's been a complex process. They've been very, very patient through this process. They welcomed us onto the property to do an inspection and look at everything and open the gate for us and all that stuff. And so we appreciate that. This is one of the key regulatory issues here, where we talk about one dwelling on the lot and that kind of thing. This is where that is. In residential districts, you can only have one principal dwelling on any lot. It doesn't apply in certain circumstances. And if you have more than 15 acres, then you can put an additional structure if you have enough road frontage. Another regulatory issue here, as I mentioned, 180 allowed per lot. An instrument has to be recorded with the registrar's office. For every ADU, we require it for everyone that's been permitted since this process was created in 2020. We borrowed this process from Rutherford County, similarly done, and many other jurisdictions as well. So there does have to be a deed restriction. Basically, it limits the use of the structure to what's allowed in our zoning resolution and prohibits it from being used as a rental unit. Again, that's pretty standard. And this is the plot plan that was prepared for this piece of property. Again, new house up here, old house, the double wide is down here. I believe the public road actually ends right here. And this lot has an easement, I believe, to access the public road, is my understanding. The terminus of the road is a little bit confusing, but when I pulled this plat, it doesn't seem to indicate that it has that it has much in the way of actual road frontage. I believe Willis Branch Road just kind of peters out at that location. Closer view. And closer still. This is the new house that's under construction. You kind of look, if you just look for the kitchen a little bit, there's this one here, and then there's another one over here. This is the ADU and the new main house that's being built. And so that's totally appropriate. I think this can easily be permitted, but the complicating factor is that double wide is still being on the property. And this is the double wide that they got us a hand-drawn layout of that structure as well. It's a manufactured home, and pretty typical in terms of this layout. And so there's some staff conclusions that we've reached in looking at this one. It's a little bit complicated, like I said, but the ownership status of the single-family structure in question, that double wide, and the property generally, it makes compliance with the zoning standards difficult, if not impossible. And that's due to the fact that that deed restriction issue that I mentioned, that all three owners can't and won't sign that, I don't suppose. B, zoning standards do not allow two accessory dwelling units on the same lot. C, you can't put two primary structures on a lot of this size. I did note though, however, the BZA could potentially grant a variance to the two primary structures on a lot if there are, as the state law requires, exceptional conditions on site that will provide justification for doing so. As y'all know, variances are only allowed with shape, topography, and other, I think, exceptional circumstances is what the statute says. And then D, due to lack of road frontage, the property can't be subdivided and placed up wide on its own lot. That was one thing we did look at. Can we just cut this lot off and make it a new lot and have the new house be in the back? And that can't meet our subdivision standards. And likewise, we have to have lots of variances and that kind of thing. And again, everybody has to consent to subdivision of property. All owners have to sign it. And so the questions or options here for the BZA, again, this is a special question to the BZA. There's a few of them really. And these are questions that are actually options too. Number one, shall the county require the removal of the existing double wide structure as was conditioned with the original approval? So that was the original commitment. It indicated that it's not feasible for them legally, perhaps. Not lawyers, so I don't know the ins and outs of all that, but the BZA could say, you're going to follow the zoning code. That's what the zoning code requires, and we're going to figure out a way to make that happen. Two, shall the county require the floor plans to be changed for the dwelling under construction so that ADU is removed? If the ADU in the main house is removed, then you end up back with one ADU, and so it's okay. This can potentially be permitted at that time. However, you still have the deed restriction issue hanging out there. Three, shall the county allow the structures to remain as they are and grant a variance to the requirement of one primary dwelling on the lot in this instance? Or number four, is there something else? Or is there another option for this property that could resolve these issues the staff hasn't thought of? And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I kind of left it open-ended there. Obviously, the property owners are here as well and can answer any questions.
Is this a public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Is anyone signed up for public hearing? This is a public hearing. Louis Pierce, come forward and speak.
Can I speak?
You can. Martin?
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, I will note that the audio has gone out completely on these, so these aren't working anymore, even though they're lit up. So everybody just speak clearly if you would, and so it can be picked up on the
Speak
audio.
up and speak clearly.
Okay. So our plans from what you have on there were changed. There is not an internal accessory dwelling anymore because the original plans, it was separated and it is not separated now. So it's just like, and I don't have it printed out and I apologize. It was emailed, but I have it on my phone if you need to see it. So like I said, the doors have been moved if you want to look at the picture. So there's not two doors to that right top picture. There's just a door from the garage into the house. And then I also have, where we have no contact, Molly is my mother-in-law. And due to some family circumstances, she has left and we have no contact with her. But I did get a printout from NES stating when her electricity was turned off. I don't know if that is anything, if you need that. As well as White House Utility, they wouldn't give me any information except that her water was turned off in September. Like they wouldn't give me a copy of anything. And I do know from the postmaster in Goodlettsville that her address had been changed. So, but we're asking to be able, because of the circumstances that we've gone through, to be able to keep, we legally were told we can't do anything with her double wide because it's not in either one of our names. So we're asking just to be able to keep that there until she moves it or under worse circumstances, she passes.
I've got 2 or 3 questions.
Okay?
Again, I'll state I did a survey, but I was not aware of these circumstances when we did that. Question, how long ago did she vacate the area?
She first vacated end of July.
Deed ownership has all 3 of your names on the 8 acres.
Yes.
Do I take it that the double wide, she bought it outright, y'all had no ownership?
No ownership.
And
She
the-
bought it
And the double wide,
years and years ago.
and put it on commonly owned property.
Yes. It's been there. She's on the property for forever. She added our name to the deed so that we could build on it. And again, it was agreed upon that her home was going to go. We don't have that in writing, though.
So we don't have power to the double wide. We don't have water to the double wide. So obviously, it's not being inhabited at this point.
Correct.
Can we compel via a certified letter to the absentee, Molly Pierce? Can we send a certified letter to the county to her requiring her to move the double wide?
We could certainly send a letter. My understanding, and I might be wrong, and the property owner might be able to correct me, is that we don't have an address to send it to.
Well, the only address we have is the address on where the double wide is.
Right.
And I guess I'm wondering if the forwarding address is still valid there.
If I may, had not received a receipt of confirmation that she received that letter. So I don't know the status of whether or not the post office is forwarding her mail or not. I can't confirm that we have sent a certified letter.
And it had been returned to you.
Correct.
Almost sounds like a family legal issue. I mean, it is what it is. You know, the only thought I'm having is post, have Marshall to post the building that it can't be occupied.
Can do that.
I don't know what kind of unsafe or something. And give Louis and Lauren time to try to work it out, as long as nobody's living in the house. And give them time to solve it. And I would trust also that should someone try to live in the house, you would notify us. Short of, and I don't know that legal is here, we don't have a right to move the house.
What I would suggest would be for the property owner to retain an attorney to explore their options. I think that idea you had about the keeping the building closed, it's not a perfect idea, but it's a good idea. I just can't think of anything else short of the property owner retaining an attorney to explore their options as to that parcel.
We have spoken to one, and he advised us that we legally can't do anything with it because it's not in our name.
Would that change, and this is what you need to ask the attorney, would that change if you were under some serious issue with Sumner County? I don't know what issue that would be.
I was going to, just like a generic example here, there's types of actions called quiet title, where you can take your matter to a judge and say, hey, we've got this issue, we need you to figure it out. You know, I don't know if that's something that they're willing to explore, you guys are willing to explore or not, but that's, I'm not sure if that would help here or not, you know, but we need to know the rights of the parties before I think this board takes any permanent action as to this this parcel.
And what was that called again? I'm sorry.
Quiet title.
Would a reasonable time be, give them 6 months to see what they can do and come back in 6 months? I'm sort of up in the air. 6 months, you know, the building's going to start deteriorating. And at some point in time, if they get a windstorm and heaven forbid the roof goes away or something, then it would become a health hazard. Then the county can step in. But until then, what if we just have Marshall post it like he said he could? You notify us like you said you would. And the county do what they can do to force it. And let's just play it out for 6 months to July.
So the kind of the impetus of you know the thing that's driving this forward, I think, is being able to obtain a certificate of occupancy on the main house that's there. I think that's kind of the crux of what we're asking the BZA to help us with is, you know, and if the BZA directs in a certain direction, I think that's good enough, because this is a pretty unique situation, you know, whether a variance is granted or whether the BZA says, hey, this is not being used as a dwelling, and so we're gonna order the staff to, you know, issue the CO when the structure is complete. You know, that if we just give us, essentially, if we just have something to give us some guidance on what
And
to
I
do.
think that's very reasonable statement. And that as soon as that, the new home can be certified for occupancy, issue it, and then this building over here that doesn't have water, doesn't have septic, or doesn't need septic, doesn't have water, doesn't have power, becomes a secondary, and the main house is the primary residence. And with that being something this board would want to make a motion to.
If I may, if it doesn't have power, and it doesn't have water, and nobody's living in it, it's a barn, it's not a house. And if it's a barn, we don't have a discussion. Because a barn is completely, on 8.3 acres, whatever it is, you can build a barn. You can have a barn. A goat can live there, a chicken can live there, a person can live there. If a person moves in here, and it goes back to what you said, we've got a problem that the counties can step in and say, you've got a dwelling, a barn that you're using for occupancy, that's illegal.
Problem I'm seeing with it, and I understand exactly what you're saying, except that the county issued a use and occupancy permit for the house that's not occupied.
True, but technically, the only problem would be that they just didn't have a permit to build a barn.
Would it be acceptable to say, you know, to allow the staff to, you know, as they, you know, we're not gonna go ahead and issue the CO with the main house until it's ready to go. I know Marshall and his folks would never do that, but would it be acceptable to essentially direct staff to allow that side of the project to move forward, and maybe the double wide comes back here in 6 months to the earlier suggestion for an update to the Board of Zoning Appeals at that time. That way we kind of keep an eye on it and it doesn't turn in. Not to say these folks would intend to, but eventually barn or whatever you want to call it, somebody will live in that house eventually if the county doesn't compel it to be removed and keep an eye on it. And so that might be a suggestion, I guess, is to, if y'all feel that's appropriate, to allow us to allow that side of the project to move forward and come back and report back to you guys in 6 months on the double wide and the status of it. Maybe that can split the baby, I don't know.
So what are we saying? The board is approving a special exception? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's kind of a determination by the Board of Zoning Appeals on what we should do, what action is the staff taking here, or should we take, given the uniqueness.
So with the special circumstances where we normally would deal with topographic issues or whatever, in this case, is there anything, had we had circumstances that are not related to those things before we granted?
Right, and so you're 100% correct that most of our variances, when we grant an actual variance to something, it's based on topography, shape of the lot, those kinds of things. With this one, I mean, you have, and like I said, I think the statute has the term "or other extraordinary circumstances," and on this one, that, you know, lot-wise, it's a lot that's out there without real road frontage in order for it to be subdivided, so that option is kind of closed off for them.
Right.
If that road directly abutted the public road, we would have directed them to a surveyor to subdivide it and it would be resolved. That can't be done, so there's avenues that are closed off due to the shape characteristics of the lot. But the unique circumstance is that I've not seen anything quite like it, is the really bizarre ownership situation that they have going on, where you have a structure located on the lot that doesn't belong to the people who are building on that lot. I'm sure it's come up before. It probably comes up all the time, and it's just not an issue. But in this instance, it's a very unique situation.
So I'm just really trying to understand, how we would document that. So it doesn't become a, you know,
Well, we're not approving anything, that's it.
I understand.
We're not granting a variance.
I'm kind of thinking
Right.
ahead if we do. At some point, we're gonna have to, right?
Not necessarily. My concern right now is, and I just thinking about it like you are, my concern is, we've had no contact with the owner of the double wide.
Right.
What if someone convinces the owner of the double wide, hey, you got that house up there, I need to live somewhere. That's why I'm hoping we can get Marshall to temporarily condemn the house, if you will. It's not suitable for occupancy. And then if that were to happen, these folks are gonna tell us it's gonna happen. But that's my concern, is that should we not do something like that? The owner could, out of financial situation or out of spite, to move somebody into that double wide, and then we're back into worse off than we are today. But also dealing with the legal system, we all know that it moves slower than government. And that's why I was thinking just,
So I guess this is a question for Marshall. So what can he condemn a property like that for?
Marshall, can,
I mean, I know safety and stuff like that. Sure. So this would be,
what kind of post can you put on, notice can you put on that to prevent occupancy?
Building permit can be revoked if the application has any misleading information or inaccurate information on it that gives us just cause to revoke the building permit. So that may be the way, the path forward, I don't know. But as far as condemning the building, I don't think we have the authority to do that.
But you can revoke the permit based that it's illegally on the lot.
If it has inaccurate information on the building permit application, yes, sir, we can. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, it just says it's inaccurate information.
Well, the
or misleading.
building permit was issued, well, there probably was never one issue.
On the double wide?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
we never had a permit, you gotta revoke it.
Well, if it doesn't have a building permit, it was supposed to have had the building permit. I would imagine you'd be surprised if it was in the county's jurisdiction at that time, and I believe it was, whenever that would have went in. If it's been in the last 25 or 30 years, we probably got a building permit on file for that structure. I don't recall seeing it, but if we don't, then by default, it's not a permitted structure.
Not permitted means that it also can't be occupied.
Right.
So either way, either it's permitted and revoke the permit, or it's not permitted and therefore can't be occupied. I'm thinking what the staff is going in this direction, without really a motion, I don't think you need a motion.
Not necessarily. I mean, one would, if
Or if you want one, somebody would make a motion.
If the motion was to, to direct staff to allow that structure that's under construction now to proceed and obtain permits and return back in 6 months with an update on the double wide. Or, if the direction is, you're willing to entertain granting a variance on that, and maybe you are, maybe you're not. And then I don't know whether it would be appropriate to approve a variance right now on the spot with it not being advertised as a variance, but it could be ridiculous.
Forgive my ignorance, is there any way you all can do a temporary CO until, just for 6 months and then revisit for more permanent? Is that Is that available to you?
And I don't want to speak for Marshall on this, but this is my personal experience, is that on commercial and that kind of thing, yes, absolutely, we can do that, and we can go, you know, we can haul them off to court if they have it landscaped or whatever it might be that they're supposed to do. For residential, a temporary CO is a whole lot harder, because you're kicking somebody out of their house and making them homeless, basically, in order to enforce some provision.
But we're
I've never done
But
that.
we're not doing that here, though, because there's nobody there. That's my comment.
Well, are you talking about a temporary CO on the new house or on the double wide?
Sorry, yeah, I meant a temporary CO on the new house, and I guess the other one could be revoked, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I think a temporary one, it might provide some more impetus to, get the situation resolved. I don't know.
If power, and Marshall, correct me if I'm wrong, if power stays off on that double line for 12 months, it's got to be re-inspected and reissued for power anyway, I think.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman.
'Cause I just bought and permitted a double wide for an office. And we went through those steps, and that double wide had been vacant for a long time. We did have to get it inspected, we had to get it, pull permits for it, and so forth. It was moved. But I'm thinking the electrical part, they're not gonna give them power without an inspection. And I don't know if electric company and our department work closely together or not. But, that's something else to think about. But I think our issue tonight is to give staff guidance on the new home.
Well, to me, this is a tough one, because if we go forward with a certificate, see if we all want to do, the issue is if the owner pops back in 9 months and says, no, I don't want to move.
Well, at that point, we do. Now
And that was why, as y'all probably heard me kind of, and I'm not trying to steer anything or anything like that, but you hear me, I keep returning to that number 3 there, the variance. The variance is the thing that becomes the permanent solution. Because you don't need the accessory dwelling unit permit. That other owner's not gonna sign that anyway, probably, but they might, I don't know. If somebody moves back in, a variance has been granted and
this
it's
can
allowed.
get really messy later.
Right.
So we almost need do something now. But for the circumstances to approve it, needs to be very well documented.
Right. Right.
Because you talked about the right road frontage,
Right.
the situation like that, I don't know.
Right.
But
It is.
I'm good with it, we better be tight on the documentation, I would think.
Right. Well, and the
For the
thing,
future
yes, sir,
situation.
and what we worry about too, with the BZA, y'all know, is a quasi-judicial body, right?
Mhm.
And so, you're setting precedent sometimes when you do things, right?
That's what I'm
And,
wondering.
so that's the thing too, is to document the uniqueness. What is it that's unique and exceptional about this situation that justifies that? If that was something you guys wanted to do. But it may be that the only feasible solutions are to say, for the BZA to say, obtain a variance, or number 1, get the double wide out, we don't care how you do it. We're not gonna go along with issuing a CO on that structure until it's gone. That's a tough approach, but I think it's legal, and I don't know, it's reasonable, I don't know if it's legal, but those 2 options are probably, those are really what you have to choose from, I think, for a permanent solution to this issue, where it doesn't come up as something where we end up in court in 2 years or something like that over it.
Yeah, I would agree. can we can.
That's right.
Or talk to them, what y'all want to do?
Josh, or Mr. Chairman, mind if I ask Marshall a question?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, have we ever issued temporary COs for non-commercial or residential uses?
Yeah, it's pretty regular.
Pretty regular?
But before a temporary CO can be issued, the house has to be considered substantially complete. In other words, you know, outside cosmetics and the yard being seeded straw, pretty much has to be complete.
And what kind of situations would you, can you describe some situations where you might do that? Well, issue a temporary CO? Like what are some example situations where you
I
would
guess
do that?
the most common reason we'll issue a temporary is the yard is required to have seed and straw or sod 50 foot around the whole perimeter of the house. Due to weather, they might not be able to get to it, so we'll issue a temporary. Any kind of safety issues, anything like that, they wouldn't be able to get a temporary.
So let's say, using your example of the sod, let's say they don't sod, like they don't comply with it, what would you do at that point?
Whenever they ask for temporary and the issue is the sod or seed and the straw, we require the contractor and the owner to submit a written agreement and submit it to our office stating that at a certain time either the contractor is going to do it or the owner is going to do it, because we don't want to get in a situation where the owner is asking us why we issued a temporary CO where the yard is not finished. So that's one of the requirements we have.
So you
is
have
that
some sort of
document.
written agreement to that effect?
Yes.
How long it would be an agreement as to how long that temporary would be good for?
Normally it's 30 to 60 days. And usually I leave that up to the field inspectors because they're the ones kind of working it out.
So I think that what you're hearing there, and I don't want to speak for Marshall, very minor issues, they'll issue a CO. A fundamental issue that might still be there in 36 months,
Yeah.
you know. And like I said, their temporary CO, all that's great. Is the Sumner County Building Codes Office going to kick somebody out of their house because the yard's not done? No, that's probably not going to happen, right? And so the likelihood on something like this, where you have a fundamental zoning problem, have a temporary CO, in 24 months it doesn't get resolved. Is the Sumner County Building Codes Office going to kick these people out of their house over this issue, right? So that's what I'm advocating for. I think is let's not hang our hats on a temporary CO that probably is not important.
So I just want to get a question from Marshall or Rocky. How far away is the new home being ready to
I'm not sure how far they along with building the house by now.
3 months, 6 months?
I'd have to defer to the owners. I really don't know.
What was the question?
How far away is the new home from being ready to?
One of them come off.
How far is the new home from the old home?
No. How close is it to being done?
It's done.
Your home's ready to move into.
Yes, sir.
For all intents and purposes.
The only thing that ain't done is just little odd and end things, is little things around the windows, little touch-up paint. Other than that, water's on, electric's on. Yes, sir, it's ready to be moved in. It's ready to put hands back over to the bank. But my mother has not been there since September. There's no insurance on the property, on her home. She took that off years ago. I wish I could give you more evidence.
still confused why we just can't take the occupancy of line on the double, then it just becomes structure.
Any motion?
We don't have the power to do it.
Well, we need direction. Personally, you know, I don't want to put a motion on the floor. I think, I've told you what I think. And yes, it's putting it off, but it's giving time for the legal system to do its thing.
I don't think it's fair to them. I mean,
Well, it's more fair to him than anybody, more fair to him. Because it's giving staff, it's taking them off staff off the hook temporarily. In fact, they're off the hook because we declared a building uninhabitable at this point. So therefore, you don't have two primary structures. And we're telling them to go ahead and issue a CO once it's ready for a habitable building. And that gets, takes care of the owner and any financial obligations later, and insurance. It doesn't, and I'm really scared to death of variance.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Now,
Of everybody.
I think we need to, it's unfortunate, I know it costs a little bit of weight, but someone, Mr. Marshall, you looked, was, you know, we were talking earlier, his reasons for doing that. Was there a permit, or is there a permit out there? For that level. That would really, they'll say about it. And we can follow exactly, I think, the plan about it. Right? Because now Marshall has a reason.
Right, Marshall has a reason, Josh has a reason.
Right.
And we get to see it again, but we haven't committed the county to an untenable situation
Right.
with two residences on one lot.
That would be my recommendation. Now, doing that, but unfortunately for the owners, they can't get their CO until we determine. Or I guess they could, once that's determined by whoever does the research on it. Because if they're not, then they can go ahead and take action. And get their CO. And I think you're correct about that.
But what if there is? What if the double wide is fully permitted? Where does that leave us?
Well, then, are there any other options for taking that action? To a double?
What? Are you saying if it is permitted?
Right.
If
So
it's not?
if it is permitted, if it's a legal structure,
Well, it's not legal once we declare it not the primary structure. And I'm ready to declare it the non-primary structure. They give Marshall the grounds in which to come in and at least red tag it where nobody can live in it. And that eliminates, doesn't eliminate squatter, but it does eliminate Ms. Pierce renting it or what have you. And if nothing else, it brings it to a head.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think allowing the new house to be permitted, marking whatever, with other permit on existing double wide, marking is those things, but I think also having to come back to court with the legal counsel, what their options are from a family standpoint, because that's the ambiguity that bothers me, is we don't know exactly how that might play out. And that's what creates all this, but it gives us time. If we give a 6-month marker out there, that way you can get your house finished, get it occupied, the existing double wide gets marked, and then we can have that follow-up with the legal counsel to see what your options are. And we can make a final decision based on that. So we just don't know. We don't know what all the ins and outs are.
Yes.
So without water or electric, the double wide would be uninhabitable, or, you couldn't occupy it. So I think that would be a solid basis for the building to be enclosed, as being uninhabitable due to the lack of water, lack of sanitation, lack of electricity. I think that'd be ample basis for a marshal to go over there and close the building.
Last question I have, and this would be from your department, or Marshall, I don't know. If you get into a situation like this, and a house is deemed uninhabitable for whatever reason, in this case it's on an illegal lot, illegally owned lot, would we send a letter to the utility district and the electric department with the address and so forth saying that this house is illegally uninhabitable, or don't issue, suggest they not put power to it?
Marshall can definitely speak to that. I know with the electrical inspectors, we do that a lot. If somebody's building something illegally, and they typically call us, because people think they don't need a permit in the county, but they still know they need an electrical permit, something or another, and so the state electrical permit folks will usually let us know. I don't know how closely we coordinate with like CEMC and White House Utilities on those kinds of things.
Will it be a fail-safe really for us if Marshall could? Once we get through this tonight, issue that letter. As soon as he tags the house, issue the letter stating that house is uninhabitable as it stands right now. Please do not, don't activate the meter. Without notifying Sumner County. That would prevent John Doe from coming in there and deciding that he wanted to live there. And then everybody gets notified and it comes to a head at that point. That's really all I'm hoping to do, is get it, bring it to a conclusion. The staff has heard our recommendation. I'm not going to ask for a vote on it, but I'm going to ask, does anyone disagree with that recommendation?
Can I just kind of restate everything so that I make sure that we're on the same page? So the direction we're getting is to, for Marshall Wright's office, the Building Code's office, to somehow tag that existing double wide as uninhabitable,
Correct.
not to be inhabited. Also, staff, my office, the code's office is free to issue whatever permits remain upon completion of the new house, and then to try to attempt to coordinate with the utilities going forward if there's any other issues. If somebody comes in to try to turn on the electric or something like that,
Right.
to let us know.
And to bring it all back in 6 months.
And bring it back in 6 months.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, we'll look into it.
Well, I really appreciate y'all's patience on that. That's why I tell everybody y'all are the best board of zoning appeals in the state. So I appreciate that. I think Mr. Chairman, we got just a little bit more business I think the city needs to attend to as far as some the acknowledgement of our renewals and that kind of thing, the conditional use permit renewals, that kind of stuff.
Let's give it over.
All right, let's do it. So as we changed our processes last year, per that resolution, that this will be handled mostly administratively, but we will note this on your agenda for acknowledgement for the continuations. The December continuations that met both codes and planning requirements, pay their fees, everything's still operating per the conditions of their approval, are noted on the left, and January is on the right there. So just for your acknowledgement, if you want to make a motion to say you approve, acknowledge.
Well, we can remember, right, anything?
Oh, right.
You know, sound like we're-
Oh, no, there's no.
Okay. Second.
We did that, tax 2004, and then we made it public. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. It is
And
unanimous.
there's just one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you all very much.
Second.